Welcome back to Seeing Red MMA Podcast here. It is your host, Dustin, again, back with an amazing fight card this weekend, guys. It is finally here. UFC 300 is merely days away. It is Thursday night, approximately about 11 p.m. right now. So we are just over, I would say, 48 hours or just under 48 hours from seeing this card unfold. And guys, I am completely hyped for this card. It has honestly been a while since I've been this hyped for a card. I don't know if it's just the UFC Apex Blues or whatever the case is, but yeah, it's definitely been a long time coming since we've had this good of a card, and we all knew that UFC 300 was going to be stacked. But as we get closer, and especially after today's press conference, man, I am jonesing for a good card, and this seems like it's definitely got the makings to be a very memorable card. But jumping right into it here, like we already know, a completely stacked card. Main event, you got Alex Poatan Pereira taking on the former light heavyweight champion Jamal Hill. Co-main event, Zhang Wei Li taking on Yan Xiaonan for the women's strawweight title. And then also some people's main event, mine probably, Justin Gaethje taking on Max Holloway at 155 for the BMF belt, followed by Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan, Bo Nickel, Cody Brundage. That's just the main card, people. Prelim headliner, Yuri Prohaska, Alexander Rakic, Calvin Kattar, Aljamain Sterling, Holly Holm, the debuting Kayla Harrison, Sadiq Youssef versus everybody's favorite emo boy, Diego Lopez. Then on the early prelims, we got Jalen Turner, Hanato, Money Moicano, Jessica Andrade, Marina Rodriguez, Bobby Green, Jim fucking Miller, Davison Figueiredo, and Cody No Love Garbrandt. Now, we'll start at the bottom just because I feel like every single fight on this card needs to be discussed, and it's so stacked. Starting with the very first fight of the night, Davison Figueiredo, the former flyweight champion, in his second fight at bantamweight, taking on the former bantamweight champion, Cody Garbrandt. And a lot of people forget, Cody Garbrandt was scheduled to fight Davison Figueiredo for the flyweight title a couple of years ago. I don't know exactly when, but that fight fell out. He ended up fighting Kai Kara France instead, got knocked out, stayed at bantamweight. Now Davison Figueiredo, after losing his belt to Brandon Moreno, decided, hey, it's time for a change. I'm going to move up to 135, try my hand at this new division, which after his fight with Rob Font seems to be doing wonders for him. So very interested on this fight. I mean, the odds definitely swing in Davison's favor, especially with the power that Davison does possess, and Cody being susceptible to knockouts. Even though he is coming off a knockout win over Brian Kelleher, Davison Figueiredo is still looking at a minus 310 favorite. Cody, unfortunately, is a plus 250 underdog. I think speed is going to play a slight factor in this one. Cody is still very fast, but I feel like Davison's timing is just top notch, especially off of a guy like Cody who tends to get caught in wild exchanges. I got Davison Figueiredo by finish, more than likely TKO. Second fight of the night, Bobby Green versus Jim fucking Miller. Jim Miller, man, UFC 100, 200, now 300. Probably won't see him at 400 because he'll be like 57 years old or whatever the hell when that rolls around. But still, what a career for this guy, man. I mean, if you're not rooting for Jim fucking Miller, I mean, there's something wrong with you. Even though the odds do say Bobby Green minus 180, Jim Miller plus 150. Bobby Green is coming off that loss to Jalen Turner where it was an extremely late stoppage. So who knows what kind of damage that has done to Bobby Green's just overall chin. Not saying that Jim Miller is a knockout artist, definitely more of a ground specialist who does have some sprinkled in knockout wins, but we all know Jim's bread and butter is the submission game and the grappling game. The odds do have Bobby Green at minus 180, Jim Miller plus 150. I do agree with the odds. If I was to bet on this fight, which I'm not because I love Jim Miller, I would have to say the odds makers do have it right, Bobby Green, but who knows? Maybe we get Jim Miller getting a takedown off of just a sloppy entry that Bobby has with his hands down, kind of blitzing in, and he times it perfectly and then kind of beats him up on the ground. Who knows? But either way, fantastic fight. Also, next up, we got Jessica Andrade, the fucking tank at women's strawweight. Number 4, taking on Marina Rodriguez, the striker's delight. Number 6. I love this fight. I think this is a really good test for Marina Rodriguez. I feel like Jessica's at that point of her career where she's been around the block, she's won the belt, she's taken on all the challengers. She's still in the top 5. She's kind of that fighter now. If you beat her, you're getting close to a title shot. And at 115, especially with that division's belt on the line later that night, this is a perfect fight to showcase who should be next for that women's strawweight fight. Because, I mean, other than Tatiana Suarez, who else is out there? I know Jessica Andrade has fought Tatiana Suarez. We'll probably get Suarez next for the winner of Weili and Xiaonan. But if Marina Rodriguez gets past Andrade, I think it's kind of a no-brainer to give her the title shot, especially if she does it in spectacular fashion. And like we all know, Dana decided to hand out $300,000 bonuses to everybody who gets a finish, or basically performance bonuses, or however you want to look at it. These people are going to be fighting for their life and for their paycheck because there's some real money on the line this weekend. I got Marina Rodriguez definitely taking this one, probably peppering up on the feet, being real slick with the striking. Even though Jessica Andrade is a minus 135 favorite, Rodriguez is still a slight underdog, plus 114. That's something I would probably put money on. Speaking of money, the next fight, we got Jalen Turner versus Renato Money Moicano. Moicano coming off that fight with Drew Dober. Wasn't the best fight, but hey, you got to do what you got to do to get the win. And then we all know Jalen Turner coming off that absolute devastating knockout over Bobby Green, which could be career-altering. So, I mean, Jalen Turner's just so big and tall, and his striking is so good. I mean, the only kind of thing that I think Moicano has going for him is the ground game, but with a tall, athletic guy like Jalen Turner, who's probably going to be able to defend the takedowns pretty easily and keep it on the feet where he is most comfortable, I'm going to have to lean Jalen Turner. I mean, he's on a roll right now. I mean, that fight with Dan Hooker arguably beat Gamrot as well, too. I think this is really Jalen Turner's time. Big Tarantula fan. I got Jalen Turner by decision, if not TKO. That wraps up your early prelims. Now, starting off the regular prelims, like I said earlier, everyone's favorite emo boy, Diego Lopez is taking on Sodiq Yusuff. Diego Lopez, a year ago, was making his debut, took on Movsar Evloev. Nobody gave him a shot. He came out there and put on a great performance and gave Evloev his toughest fight to date. And that was the guy making his debut. Since then, has been on an absolute tear. All finishes. Sodiq Yusuff is coming off that loss to Edson Barbosa, where it was close. I will give him that. But for how high of a caliber everyone says Sodiq is, that should have been a guy that he should have been able to get past. So that does lead me in the direction of Diego Lopez. I think Lopez is the future. He's fun, entertaining. He's a finisher. And he's got like a cult following right now. I think momentum's on Lopez's side. I got Lopez by submission, if not decision. And now, this is an interesting fight. I mean, usually women's MMA I'm not too excited about, but this one is a little bit different because you have the former bantamweight champion, Holly Holm, taking on the debuting Kayla Harrison. Now, we all know Kayla Harrison from the PFL, has won the tournament multiple times, but always has fought at 155. She is making her bantamweight debut, 20 pounds less. I know she has fought at 45 before, but 135 is a giant step up from the weight class that she normally participates at. Holly Holm has stated that she would not take this fight unless it was at 135, which I agree. I mean, I wouldn't want to fight Kayla at 145, give her that much of a weight advantage, because who knows how much she's going to balloon up the next day. I want her to be as drained as possible. I want her to be as slow as possible. I want to work her gas tank. There's no odds on the UFC's website for this one. I mean, obviously, I would think Kayla would be the favorite just based off of her record alone, her Olympic pedigree. But, I mean, Holly Holm, she's got that striking in her. She knows how to maintain the distance. I'm going to go out on a limb here. I'm going to say Holly Holm decision. Moving on, Calvin Kattar taking on the debuting featherweight Aljamain Sterling, moving up after losing his title to Sean O'Malley. going to 145 and taking on number 8 Calvin Kattar. Yeah, this is an interesting one because we don't know how bad that knockout loss was. We don't know how good he's going to look after not having to cut an extra 10 pounds, and he's been looking absolutely shredded. My heart says Aljamain Sterling backpacks Calvin Kattar for 3 rounds, but we do know Aljamain Sterling's striking is not good. Just to be completely honest, it is not that good. Calvin Kattar, if it stays on the feet, I would predict him to get a knockout. Definitely like a 1-2 down the pipe, some kind of long, straight boxing combination that puts Aljamain down. I don't think it'd be a one-hitter quitter. It's kind of more like a TKO situation. But, I mean, Aljamain's a minus 162, plus 136 for Kattar. The odds are swinging in one direction over the other, but it's not in a heavy direction compared to one or the other. That being said, I'm going to take the dog on this one. I got Calvin Kattar by TKO. Then your feature prelim of the night. This one gets me going. Yuri Prochazka, the former light heavyweight champion, coming off of his title fight loss to Alex Poatan-Pereira, the man we will talk about who is in our main event. Let me spit this in out. That was gross. I'm sorry. But Alexander Rakic hasn't fought since the Jan Blachowicz fight where he blew out his knee in a fight that he was winning, arguably. This fight is even closer. They got only Yuri as a plus 100, Rakic as a minus 120. Now, if Rakic was a little bit more active, if he didn't have that injury and he was stayed a little bit more active leading up to this fight, I would lean more towards the Rakic route. But Yuri is more active, was able to land some pretty good shots on Poatan. I'm leaning Yuri. I think Yuri gets the dub. I think it is going to be a pretty strategic fight. I don't think it's going to be an easy knockout win. Yuri Prochazka, unanimous decision. Now we move on to the main card. This is where it gets ridiculous. I don't care what you say about his placement on the card or whatever. If you remember UFC 200, Sage Northcutt was pretty high up on the card as well too, so give the guy a break. Bo Nickal is taking on Cody Brundage. Bo Nickal's going to wrestle him. He's going to take him down. He's going to probably try and submit him, if not get a TKO, ground and pound him out. He is a minus 2,100. That is a huge favorite. That's the biggest favorite on any recent card I've seen, probably since like Shevchenko versus Cachoeira, which was so long ago. Cody Brundage is coming off that win. I don't even know who the dude he fought was, but he's caught in a triangle, got a slam KO on the UFC Austin card. I think it was late last year, like December or something like that. Yeah, I think it was December. Bo Nickal, he's only 5-0. We'll see how good he is. I mean, he's definitely fighting the right guys, in my opinion. Maybe his placement on the card is a little bit off just because he is going to be... Like, I mean, the guy's 5-0. He's a minus 2,100, taking on a guy who's been in the UFC for a while, had his ups and downs. I think this is a decent test for where he's at in his career. If he gets past Cody Brundage and smokes him, give him somebody in the top 15. It's off to the races with him. I got Bo Nickal by submission. Now we get into the juicy stuff. This is where it gets good, ladies and gentlemen. Charles Do Bronx Oliveira taking on Arman Tsarukyan. I have no idea which way to lean on this one, guys, because, I mean, Charles, he's a plus 185, Tsarukyan minus 225. Both are coming off wins, first-round TKO wins over Beneil Dariush. I mean, Arman definitely flatlined Beneil. Charles more or less got like a TKO. I don't think Beneil really went out in that one, but, I mean, both extremely good grapplers. I would give the edge in striking to Charles Oliveira. I think he is going to be able to kind of hang as far as stuffing the takedowns. It's more or less the scrambles and the reshoots of Tsarukyan that does give me a little bit of worries where I'm like, ugh, how is this going to play out? Is Tsarukyan going to be able to get Charles just on his back? But even then, when Charles is on his back and you're in his guard, that's never somewhere where you want to be. So it's just like, I I don't know how this is going to go. I mean, I wouldn't even put money on this one. I would just sit back and enjoy the fireworks because I feel like Saryukian, he's got some added confidence coming into this one, especially getting a knockout win in the first round over a guy like Beneil Dariush and doing it arguably better than how Charles did it. But hey, I'm here for entertainment. I'm here for fights. I'm just happy to be here for that one. Now, following that fight, Justin the Highlight Gaethje versus Max Blessed Holloway. Respected number twos in each of their division. Lightweight for Gaethje, featherweight for Holloway. BMF title is on the line. Now, this fight is going to be fun and it's going to hurt to watch because it's two of my favorite fighters of all time. So one of them's got to lose. If they could both go in there and beat the absolute dog shit out of each other and have just a great, is this 5 rounds? However many rounds it is, doesn't matter. If it's 3 rounds, it's got to be 5 rounds because it's the BMF title. So if they go out there and beat the shit out of each other 4 or 5 rounds and it ends in a draw, I would be completely happy. I would be happy with that. But that's a perfect world. Gaethje is a minus 170, Holloway a plus 142. I think Gaethje gets it done. I don't think he finishes Holloway. I think he's able just to... I think it's going to look a lot like the Poirier fight. I think the power is going to play a real difference. I'm not saying that Max doesn't have power. It's just when Holloway gets hit, especially like in the second Poirier fight, it's a lot more noticeable than when he hits somebody, especially when you got a guy like Gaethje who predominantly throws just looping hooks with all of his might and is putting his whole body weight into it, trying to take your head off, compared to a guy like Holloway who is a very crisp and clean boxer, straight linear punches, 1-2s down the middles, triple up on jabs sometimes, throwing a straight right, might throw in some body shots and things like that here. The way Holloway gets it done is that if he drags it into the later rounds, like the 4th, maybe even 5th round, and it just saps Gaethje and is able to take all that punishment, because I think Gaethje's got the power advantage, but how good is Holloway's chin? I mean, we've seen him cracked by Dustin. We've seen him cracked by Aldo. We've seen him cracked by Volkanovski. How good is Holloway's chin? I mean, he even took some shots against Yair. So, I mean, the man's never been dropped before. I mean, we've seen him wobbled on the feet, especially in the second Poirier fight. But I don't know. I don't know, guys. This is what makes this fight so much fun. This is what makes this sport so amazing, is that we get to see two guys at the top of their game going at it. For who cares if it's for a bullshit made-up belt? It could just be a 5-round fun fight, and I would still just be salivating over it. It is such a good fight. I got Gaethje probably by decision. Co-main event: Zhang Weili versus Yan Xiaonan. China versus China. First time this has happened. Probably first time in a long time this is going to happen too. I think it's going to be a minute before we see this kind of matchup. Zhang Weili's so good. She's so good. Coming off that win over Amanda Lemos, where she displayed all her skills. We do know Amanda Lemos isn't the best grappler. Zhang did kind of exploit that. I don't really know how good Xiaonan is on the ground here. I mean, I've known of her. I've seen her fight many of times. There's other than the Andrade performance, there's not another performance that sticks out in my mind that I could point to where I'm like, oh, that's a spot where she can take advantage of Zhang. I mean, it's hard for me to go against Zhang here. They don't have the odds on the website from what I'm seeing here, but Zhang, I feel like she gets it done. I even feel, unless Xiaonan is a lot better than I think she is, I think Zhang gets a finish. If Xiaonan is better than I think she is, then it might be a Weili decision. I mean, that's a fight I would be willing to put money on, is Weili. Main event, boys. Alex Poatan Pereira, light heavyweight champion, taking on Jamal Hill, former light heavyweight champion, never lost his belt, had to vacate it due to an Achilles injury, coming back after he beat Alex Pereira's coach, Glover Teixeira, in Brazil in a 5-round dominating fight. Now, in the lead up to this fight, it is very intriguing because both are very good strikers in very different ways. Alex Pereira, very upright, arms are wide, very, very little hip flexion on his kicks, linear punches, crisp hooks. Jamal Hill, as what people have been calling it, spooky boxing, is able just to throw these looping punches from weird angles while leaning back, and also is able to stance switch while throwing these punches. I mean, a lot of people have, obviously, Poatan, it's hard to bet against him, but I don't know, something about him, man, makes me want to put money on Jamal. I think he's got a weird style of fighting where he's able to hit people from weird angles. And it's not like there's a reach advantage between these two. They're literally the same height and have the same reach. Maybe Alex has a little bit longer legs, but in the boxing distance, they have the same reach and they're the same height. There's no advantage between the two of them as far as size-wise in the reach department. Power department, that may be a little bit different. All of Alex Pereira's KOs besides Yuri Prochazka, which could be argued is a little bit of a early stoppage, have all been at middleweight. He's only had 2 fights at light heavyweight. Blachowicz, Yuri, Jamal Hill, sparked Jimmy Crute, TKO Thiago Santos, flatlined Johnny Walker, beat the brakes off of Glover Teixeira, wobbled him many times, and we all know how tough Glover Teixeira is. There's something about this fight. I think Jamal Hill gets it done. I don't think it goes the distance. One of these guys is getting knocked out. And this is the reason why I'm saying if I had to put money on this, you've heard me say earlier on some of these fights, I wouldn't bet on this. If there's a gun to my head and I had to put money on this fight, I think Jamal Hill gets it done by TKO. We've seen Alex Pereira get touched. We've seen him get tagged. We've seen him get wobbled, especially in the 2 Izzy fights. Yuri even touched him up a little bit too, because Alex's defense, it's just backing up. He just puts his hands up, leans back, and just tries to get away from you. Circles from time to time. I think Jamal Hill has a lot better defense when it comes to avoiding strikes because he's able to counter since he has such a long reach, kind of leans back while throwing, catches a lot of people with that, like Walker, how he kind of threw his overhand right at the same time. Jimmy Crute sidestep, overhand left, or overhand right, knocked him out. Thiago Santos kind of did the same thing with just a power straight right. Clipped him with that, dropped him, finished him off on the ground there. I think we're going to be hearing and new on Saturday night for this light heavyweight title belt. But either way, I'd be happy with either option. If Poatan gets it done, assalamu alaikum, all the power to him. I know Ramadan's over, but I know he's not even Muslim, but whatever. It's such a good fight. I'm a fan of both of these guys. Ever since Jamal Hill knocked out Jimmy Crute, I was like, all right, I know it's Jimmy Crute. He's a tough guy. I know he's been finished before, but the way he did, just the finesse that he had, I was like, okay. And then when he followed that up with Johnny Walker, I was like, this guy's a problem. Right after Johnny Walker has that war with Thiago Santos, I was like, all right. I know Thiago Santos is on a losing streak. I know Johnny Walker's on a losing streak. But the way he goes about it with the striking, how he waves himself into the fire, how he'll put himself into harm's way to cause harm, but he's very good at just leaning out of the way and just very, very aware of his defenses and his spatial awareness. I think Jamal Hill gets it done. I think he gets it done by KO. I think he gets it done by TKO. But we will see, man. UFC 300 is filthy stacked. Again, to go over the card, main event, Poatan, Jamal Hill, Co-Main, Zhang Weili, Yan Xiaonan. Lightweight, feature fight, Justin Gaethje, Max Holloway for the BMF belt. Charles Oliveira, Arman Tsarukyan, Bo Nickel, Cody Brundage, Yuri Prochazka, Alexander Rakic, Calvin Kattar, Aljamain Sterling, Holly Holm, Kayla Harrison, Sadiq Youssef, Diego Lopez, Jalen Turner, Renata Moicano, Jessica Andrade, Marina Rodriguez, Bobby Green, Jim fucking Miller, and to open up the card, Davison Figueiredo versus Cody Garbrandt. Guys, what more is there you could want? This fight card, 3 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, which is Arizona, so that'll be starting about 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That's for the early prelims. 10 p.m. will be for the, 11 p.m. will be for the main card. I don't know why I just brain farted right there, but tune in, guys. It's history. UFC 300. These cards only come every so often, and I am here for it, and I cannot wait. Hope you guys watch it. If you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you like, and please, if you'd like to, follow me on Twitter at SeeingRedMMA. Other than that, guys, as always, you have yourself a great rest of your day. Until then, I will see you next time.